Have you ever considered making a podcast? Well, Spotify has a great platform that lets you make them very easily, distribute them everywhere. You can even earn money while doing so, and it's all in one place. And the best part, it's all for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and it's really simple to get started. So you record and edit your podcast right from your phone, your computer, whichever one that you like. And then when you publish them, they distribute your podcast directly to Spotify and also everywhere else that podcasts are heard. You can do video podcasts, you can interact with your audience with Q&As and polls. And once they're up and running, like I mentioned before, you can even earn money through your podcast in a variety of ways through things like ads and podcast subscriptions. And of course, it's totally free to use. There is no catch. When I started Plant School, I used Spotify for Podcasters, and I continue to use it because I love it. It's super easy to use, and it gives me everything that I need as a podcaster. So if you have ever wanted to start your own podcast, I highly recommend that you try out Spotify for Podcasters. You can download the app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Welcome to the Plant School podcast. I'm Rachel, and here we learn about plants, how to care for them, how they work, and I keep it simple and taught in a way that anyone from beginner to expert can enjoy. Join me in Plant School. Hello and welcome to Plant School. So happy to have you here. And before I dive in to this incredible episode, I want to remind you guys that on episode 100, I'm doing a giveaway. I'm going to be giving away a free plants. It's yet to be decided on how many people I will be choosing for this giveaway because it's episode 100. It's a pretty big deal. If you want to enter in to win a free plant and a free plant t-shirt from my merch store, which you can find in the show notes of every single episode, then all you have to do to enter is share this podcast with someone that you think would be interested in it. Whether it's your mom, grandfather, your friend, anyone. If you share this podcast with them, you can email me at tinnyplants@gmail.com or message me on Instagram at tinnyplants, TENNEY plants. And from there, I'll enter you into the giveaway. I'll message you back and let you know that you're entered in. I'm not just going to leave you hanging and you are just wondering if you have been entered in. I'll let you know, and I really appreciate all who have entered in so far. So let's dive into this week's episode. We are going to be learning about the aloe vera plant, and this is such a great plant. I don't know why I haven't covered it, so I'm really excited to be covering it today because I often see it in people's homes, and it's amazing. There's so much history to it. So we're going to dive into all of that, starting with the question, what is an aloe vera plant? For those of you who you've never seen one, you have no idea what it is. It's an easy to grow succulent. It has these kind of long, spiky leaves, not super spiky. It's not quite like a cactus spine. They just have small little spikes. It's not a cactus. It's a succulent, but not a cactus. And the sap of an aloe vera is widely known for its medicinal uses. So if you have never seen the plant, you have probably used it on a sunburn because it works wonders on a sunburn. Aloe veras, they do flower. They produce these big yellow or red flowers if they have the right conditions, usually when they are grown outside. And the flowers kind of look similar to the red hot poker plants, if you guys are familiar with those. They're kind of I would say they're more of an arid landscaping plant, but they have these really striking red inflorescences that kind of have a cone shape to them, the way they are positioned on this long spike or stalk of the plant. There are over 500 species of aloe vera. The most common one that we think of when we are talking about like the houseplant is Aloe barbadensis vera. That's its official name, but we'll just refer to it as aloe vera or aloe. A lot of people also call it lily of the desert. And when it comes to this plant's symbolism, there is quite a bit just because its history is so dense. So with that dense history comes a lot of symbolism, from different cultures and things like that. So the name aloe vera is derived from the Arabic word aloe, which translates to shining, bitter substance, and the Latin word vera translates to true. Its literal translation is true, shining, bitter substance, which, when you consider the gel inside of the plant, it makes sense. And we'll talk a little bit more about what is inside the aloe vera plant, that gel-like substance. But keeping to the symbolism, they can mean bitterness, dejection, grief, and on kind of the flip side, also they can symbolize integrity and luck. Most effective healer, religious superstition, small talk. I'm not really sure where that one comes from. It can also symbolize sorrow, superstition, and wisdom. Lots of different meanings that is coming with this plant. I don't know which one to choose. There is such an array of meanings. But a lot of people believe plants bring powers with them. So possible powers of the aloe vera plant include good luck, guarding against evil influences, healing, preventing feelings of loneliness, preventing household accidents. Ooh, I need that one. Fill my house with aloe veras, and maybe my toddlers won't be so clumsy, right? Is that how that works? I wish. It can also have the powers of protection, repelling evil, security, shelter from harm, and worldly success. It can bring that to you. So a lot of fun possible powers also with this plant. So if you're into that, this is like a really powerful plant apparently, because it brings in a lot of different powers. And the aloe vera plant has actually been planted on graves as kind of a way to help promote pre-reincarnation peacefulness. So this is a practice that has been done by various cultures throughout history. And there's also a little bit of folklore with aloe vera that if you hang it over your door or over your window, it will keep out evil and bring in luck. So kind of taking those possible powers that we just talked about and practicing it by putting it over your door or your window. I mean, if you have good lighting up there, go for it. And if you've got something sturdy, because you don't want to be going through your door and having an aloe vera plant smash on your head. That doesn't sound fun. It's not quite as cute as mistletoe, where it's just, a parasitic plant that you kiss under. This one is kind of pokey and heavy. Anyways, moving on to a rather big question for the aloe vera plant of where does it come from and what is its history? There's just so much. So I'm sure that I could go into so much more detail. I feel like I went into a lot already, but just know that there's probably a lot more I could have said about this. I've just chosen what I've chosen because I thought it was interesting and relevant. The aloe vera plant originates from the Arabian Peninsula, and this is according to the newest research because there's kind of some heated arguments of where this plant has originated from, because it's been so important for so long to mankind that it's a little hard to tell where this plant exactly came from, but they believe it comes from the Arabian Peninsula. Today they're found in dry regions of Africa, Asia, Europe, India, and America, almost every continent, and they do love dry, like sandy, poor soil conditions. That's generally where they are found, and they have been used for medicinal purposes, for medicine, for millennia in several cultures, including Greece, Egypt, India, Mexico, Japan, and China. So there's historical evidence that there were well-established trade routes for the aloe vera plant in the Red Sea and Mediterranean regions, and those trade routes date as far back as 4th century BC. They're really ancient trade routes, and the aloe vera plant was a big part of those trade routes being traded along. All these different cultures were using the aloe vera plant and needing them. Drawings of the aloe vera have been discovered on the walls of different tombs of Egyptian pharaohs, dating back as old as 6,000 years old. And they've actually found that Egyptian queens Nefertiti and Cleopatra both used them in like their regular beauty regimes. They would put it on their skin to keep it supple and soft. And the Egyptians referred to the aloe plant as a plant of immortality because it can live and bloom without soil. And it's believed the Egyptians were also among the first people to kind of realize that the aloe vera plant had a lot of health benefits. It could be used for multiple things to be aiding them in so many different things. We'll be talking about all the health benefits that aloe vera plant has, but they used it for topical application, for internal use. They would eat it. They had it as burial offerings to their gods. You can kind of see just how important it was just simply to Egyptian culture, and other cultures had it in high regard as well. So Alexander the Great and also Christopher Columbus used it often to treat wounds, not only for them, but for their soldiers and the people they interacted with. Native American tribes referred it to the wand of heaven because they believed that all the benefits that this plant offered, the moisturizing properties, the health properties, came directly from heaven. And the first reference we have that's known to aloe vera in English was a translation by John Goodhue in 1655. And he was translating Dioscorides De Materia Medica, which I believe dates back to around like 50 to 70 AD, so a very long time ago. By the early 1800s, aloe vera was being used as a laxative in the United States, and in the mid-1930s, it was kind of a turning point when it was found to be successful at treating chronic and severe dermatitis. And dermatitis is kind of just a general term for common skin irritation. It can be itchy, dry skin, or maybe sunburned skin. So in the US in the mid-1930s, they started to use it heavily for that, for dermatitis and treating different sort of skin conditions. Okay, so now we're going to jump into a little bit of the medicinal uses and all the different benefits it has. So the gel inside the plant is used medicinally. And right now, there are so many studies going into the benefits of the aloe vera plant because it is so popular and the benefits of it seem really extensive. There's a lot of research going on. So I'm just taking like little bits and pieces. I'm sure someone could write a book about all the things it can do and all the different research, but we're kind of doing like a skimming of learning about the medicinal benefits. So as I was saying, the gel inside is what we usually think of when it's being used medicinally, although the outside of the plant, like the actual leafy green part, not the gel, can be used. It's very bitter, and it's kind of mostly just used as a stimulant laxative and a bitter tonic. So if you eat the entire leaf, that's where the laxative benefits come from, is that outer leafy green edge of the plant. The gel inside is not bitter, and it is rather slimy. It's used for wound healing, skincare, and also as a tonic drink. And a tonic drink, it's basically just saying it's a concoction with health benefits and invigorating properties. So when I refer to it as that, it's just like a healthy sort of drink. It has benefits to it. And you can often find them in dietary supplements and health drinks. And most of us know that they are very beneficial in treating burns, other skin disorders, but they also can treat infections, inflammations. It can help the immune system, help with diabetes, high cholesterol, and there are even studies showing that it can help with cancer too. This is just the gel I'm talking about right now. So many different benefits. There are even therapeutic benefits just because it has a really high content of amino acids, sugars, enzymes, different hormones and vitamins and minerals. The aloe vera gel is just really beneficial in treating oral problems and microbial growth and skin diseases. It can help digestive ailments and boosting immunity. With all of these benefits, you can see why it is widely used across so many different industries. It's used in the cosmetic industry, personal care, food and beverage, pharmaceutical, and different things like that. In Ayurvedic medicine, which is Indian medicine, they refer to the aloe vera plant as Kumari, and that word actually translates to a beautiful young girl and can kind of, give you an idea of what they think of the plant and what it can do. But they use it, and it's culturally known to keep a woman youthful. So a lot of women in India who practice Ayurvedic medicine will use it throughout their life, the gel of the aloe vera plant. And it's praised for its ability to support digestion, skincare, and natural beauty. So not only is it important to like us for our sunburns and things like that, it's still being used around the world. And so if you have an aloe vera plant and you're like, man, I've got to start using this plant more. There's so many different things it can do. You can remove a mature leaf and cut it lengthwise and squeeze out the gel of the leaf, and you can apply it to, a burn, or maybe you have dry, itchy skin, deal with eczema or something like that. You can actually use it for cold sores. And you can put the gel on, or you can lay the opened leaf onto your skin. Either way works. It's not super recommended to eat the gel unwashed because it can cause nausea and upset stomach because there's a lot of latex in the gel. But if you do wash it, it can be safely eaten. But eating a lot can cause cramping and diarrhea. So be aware that you can't just be eating aloe vera for every meal. Might cause some problems. And I want to, just because it's fun, get into some of the products that aloe vera can be in. I Googled aloe vera products and tried to get a sampling for all that's out there because there is so much. So number one, there's the gel for sunburns, for the topical use of healing sores, helping with your skin aging. That one we all know. But there's also aloe vera supplement pills that you swallow, and it's promoted to support healthy digestion. There's aloe vera lotion. There's aloe vera powder extract. I'm assuming this one could be added to different drinks or smoothies for the same reason of the pill, to help healthy digestion, and it's just kind of a dietary supplement. There's aloe vera juice, which I really want to try. Gosh darn it, I should have bought some and tried it on the podcast. I'm going to have to make an Instagram reel of me trying aloe vera juice or something. Honestly, it sounds kind of icky. Let's be real. It sounds kind of gross, but I want to try it. I want to know what it tastes like. But aloe vera juice also is known to support healthy digestion and muscle joint function. And there are other benefits that it boasts of having. Oh, you know what? I just remembered. I don't think I can try aloe vera. Maybe the juice is fine. But I did read that taking supplements of aloe vera and ingesting aloe vera is not recommended for women who are expecting or who are nursing. So it kind of cuts me out of the picture here. A lot of my listeners know that I'm expecting a baby right now. And you know what? Let's look it up. I just really want to know, can I, it's not going to know. Can you have aloe vera juice when pregnant? It says there's a significant lack of research surrounding the safety of aloe vera products, so they do not recommend it. Small doses of it can be safely consumed. That's the problem. If I were to take a small glass and, try out aloe vera juice, and then I'm like, hey, kids and husband, do you guys want aloe vera juice? I guarantee you it is going to sit in my fridge for so long. No one's gonna be brave enough to try it but me. And it sounds like perhaps I shouldn't be doing it. Okay, I feel better now. I feel like I'm not missing out too much now that I didn't have it here on the podcast. Could have been a health hazard. Perhaps. It probably would have been fine, but I don't want to risk anything. My baby is important to me, so. All right. Anyways, that was quite a tangent on aloe vera juice. The other product I wanted to mention is that they do have an aloe vera spray for your face and hair. And there's a lot of other different products. I know there's a lot of different hair products involving aloe vera and that it can be very healthy for your hair. And here's some interesting stats for you with this aloe vera market and all the products it involves. In 2021, they estimated that just the gel market, just the gel, is worth about $243.6 million. And the whole industry of aloe vera products is worth about $625 million. And those stats, when I looked them up, they actually just apply to the US. So when you look at the worldwide market, the annual market value is worth about $13 billion. That's a lot of money. This is a huge market and a hugely important plant. Is hugely a word? I feel like that's something Donald Trump made up. It's an important plant. That's all I'm saying. So just to give you an idea, about 1.5 million aloe vera leaves are harvested each week. That's simply to be keeping up with the demand that aloe vera products have in the industry. And there are entire aloe vera farms that are growing aloe vera just so that we can keep up with the demand. So when I was researching aloe vera, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion about how aloe vera plants came to be a common house plant in our homes. But as you can see, it seems pretty obvious of why this plant has been around culturally so long. It's been important to mankind for so long. And so I feel like it has just spread throughout the world. And naturally, I feel like it has been brought into homes. And honestly, it's kind of fun to have this really important medicinal plant in your home that you can be using. And, in the summertime, when you're out a little too long in the sun and you get a sunburn, you can put this plant to use and apply it to your skin. Or perhaps, you can make a little like aloe vera face mask. I bet Nefertiti and Cleopatra would approve, because it sounds like they were doing the same thing. But regardless, this plant has found its way to being a very common house plant. And when we come back from our quick break, we're going to talk about how to keep your aloe vera plant alive in your home. Oh my goodness, hello, it's me doing an ad for my own podcast. But I don't know if you guys know this, but this podcast, the Plant School podcast, is put on by me, myself, and I. No one is paying me to do this. I do it in my free time, and I greatly appreciate any support that you can give to keep this podcast going. So there are 3 ways that you can support this podcast. Number 1, you can share it with a friend. And if you do so, you actually enter into my giveaway. All you have to do is message me on Instagram at TinnyPlants and let me know that you shared it, and I will enter you in to win some really cool Plant School merch for free. Secondly, you can buy Plant School merch all on your own. We have some really cool plant-related shirts and stickers, as well as Plant School podcast-specific shirts and stickers. The link to my merch store can be found in the show notes of every single episode. And third option that you can do to support this podcast is to become a supporter. There is a link at the very bottom of the details of every episode of my podcast, and you can click that link to support the podcast and set up a monthly donation. It can be as low as $1 a month, or it can be, as high as you want. I won't tell you what to do. Any support that you can give is greatly appreciated. It allows me to spend my free time researching for you and helping you learn more about the plant world in a really fun and digestible way. I love doing this podcast, and I would really love your guys' help in sustaining it so that I can keep going with it for the long haul. Thank you.
Listen to the 48 Hours podcast for shocking murder cases and compelling real-life dramas from one of television's most watched true crime shows. Go behind the scenes of each episode with award-winning CBS News correspondents and producers in Postmortem, a weekly deep dive. Listen to 48 Hours wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, I'm back and ready to jump into how to care for an aloe vera plant. So first thing is, what's the best way to water an aloe vera? And I would say this is like the most important thing that you could get down for this plant to keep it healthy and alive. In general, you want to water when the top 1 to 2 inches are dry, and keep in mind that watering in the wintertime is going to slow down significantly because houseplants in general, they aren't getting as much sun and not taking up as much water. Therefore, you cut back on watering because they aren't using it as fast. When you do water them, it's recommended to water them really deeply, like soak them in water. And you do this really infrequently, like once they are dried out, at least the top third of the soil, those top few inches. And though I do not love timelines of when to water, it's going to be about every 2 to 3 weeks. Or just stick your finger in the soil to know when it needs to be watered. And you can tell that it is needing water when it has shrunken, wrinkled leaves. That's a sign that it's being underwatered. So to fix this, you can water it really deeply, soak it. But you do want to avoid letting water sit on the plant. So when you water, try to only get the soil wet. Don't be dousing the plant and letting just water sit on the leaves. That can lead to different fungal infections. And if you do happen to overwater, there's a lot of different symptoms that overwatering can cause. It can cause your leaves to turn a reddish brown or pale and yellow, or your leaves can get brown and mushy with dark spots. Those are all signs that your aloe vera plant has been overwatered. And overwatering is probably the quickest way to kill this plant, as it is a succulent plant and does not need constant watering or anything like that. When it comes to lighting and knowing where to put these plants in your home, they do need bright and direct sun. Some direct sun is fine. If you do want to put them in more full sun, you need to acclimate them to more sun a little at a time, just so you avoid their leaves getting burnt. And burnt leaves are when they've turned brown, red, reddish brown. That's a sign that they are getting too much sun. And on the flip side of that, not enough sun can show in pale or yellowing leaves. I think the pale and yellowing leaves was also a symptom of overwatering. So be sure to kind of figure out, okay, is this not enough sun or am I overwatering? Because some of the symptoms do overlap. Also, not enough sun can cause your plant to get leggy. I've noticed this a lot with people that have an aloe vera plant, is they don't get enough sun and they get leggy. And it seems kind of funny to think of them as leggy because in general, when you think of a leggy plant, you think of leaves really spread apart and it's just mostly stem. So how does an aloe vera plant really get leggy? But their leaves kind of get thin and they will not stay upright. They get rather floppy. That's a sign that your plant is not getting enough sun. You can fix this by obviously putting it in an area that gets more sun, or if you can't do that, you can supplement it with artificial lights if you need to. Western or a southern window is ideal for this plant just because those windows do get a lot of bright sunlight coming into them. And they do prefer temperatures between 50 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 to 24 degrees Celsius. And during those really warm months of the year, you can place them outside if you want to, but just know you need to bring them back in if you live in an area that gets below 50 degrees because these plants do not do well with cold temperatures. You think about that gel freezing and unthawing. It's just going to be a big old mushy mess if you allow that to happen. And when it comes to propagation, these plants are pretty fun to propagate. So mature aloe vera plants, they produce these little offsets, or some people call them pups, baby plants, whatever you want to call them, and they produce them at the base of the plant. And you can carefully remove them. You will be cutting off the stem and you're trying to keep their roots there, and you can create new plants. You can also just leave them with the parent plant if you don't want to be taking them. But when you do remove these pups, you want to let them callus for a few days because that stem you've cut, it's kind of wet and gooey, right? It's like a fresh wound. So you're kind of letting it scab over or callus over. And then you can place it in a pot. once it has calloused. And you want to keep the soil more on the dry side. You are trying to avoid any sort of rot. These plants do not need a whole lot of water when they are being propagated. Kind of similar to like your little Echeveria succulents, where if you pull off a leaf and just set it on a plate with no soil, it's just air, they will start to grow roots. It's very similar with this succulent, the aloe vera plant. It doesn't need a whole lot of water to have those roots establish well. And it may take a few months for the plant to really get roots and be established, so you do have to practice some patience when propagating this plant. Other modes of propagation include propagating it by seed. They can be placed in well-drained sandy soil, and germination occurs at 68 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, so fairly warm, or 20 to 24 degrees Celsius. And then there are some species of aloe that can be commercially micropropagated. So that's like when they take a small little tissue culture, like a small piece of the plant, and they are able to grow it out of petri dishes and create mass quantities of the plant with very little, like just tiny pieces of tissue. That's obviously not something we'd probably be doing in our homes, but it's used commercially and it's interesting to know. Next question on caring for the aloe plant is what soil is best for them and when do you repot them? Aloe plants, if we've learned anything from, where they grow naturally, is that they like a more arid environment. They don't need great soil, and usually it's sandy soil that they're growing in their native environments. So they prefer a well-draining potting mix when they're in our homes. You can use a cactus mix, you can add sand or perlite to a potting mix and go about it that way. But it's highly recommended to use a well-draining potting mix for this plant to do really well. You want to use a pot that has drainage holes to allow any extra water to have an escape rather than it just sitting in the bottom of the pot and causing root rot. What I love to do is I do a lot of double potting, where I keep a plant in its nursery pot, just those plain plastic ones that aren't super pretty, and I put them into a pot that's decorative and doesn't have any holes. But because the nursery pot does have holes, it just drains out into the decorative pot, and it allows that extra water a place to be without causing any problems. And some people even recommend putting a layer of sand at the top of the soil to keep the base of the plant, the neck of your aloe plant, dry and prevent any sort of rot, especially neck rot, on the aloe plant. So if you want to be careful, you are more than welcome to add a layer of sand at the top of the soil. And when repotting, you want to do it when it's outgrown its pot, maybe roots are coming out of the pot or showing on top of the soil, or it's starting to dry out just really incredibly fast. You want to repot it. The best seasons for doing this are spring and summer when the plant is actively growing, and you want to get a pot that's 1 to 2 inches wider. It doesn't necessarily need to be a deeper pot though, because this plant's roots, they don't go super, super deep into the pot. So it's not really necessary for them. Moving on to how to fertilize them, since these plants natively grow in really nutrient-poor soil, they don't need a whole lot of fertilizer. So it's recommended to feed them once in spring and summer if you want to keep them really vibrant, and to use a 10-10-10 fertilizer or a 20-20-20. Those are kind of just your basic balanced houseplant fertilizers. And those numbers, those 3 numbers, are referring to the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium values in the fertilizer, the active ingredients. So a 20-20-20 would be 20% nitrogen, 20% phosphorus, and 20% potassium in the active ingredients of your fertilizer. I think it's always important to ask the question, what kind of pests does this plant deal with? So they are prone to scale and mealybugs on their leaves. Those can be treated by wiping them off with rubbing alcohol or getting a Q-tip and getting them off. For scale, physical removal is the best way to go. Mealybugs too, but insecticides can be very helpful with mealybugs as well. Another thing that aloe plants deal with is aloe mites. I've never seen anyone deal with this in their home, but it can be an issue, so we're going to cover it. They're small, so they often go unnoticed until galls start to form because of their feeding. So the gall on the plant, it looks like a knobby, cancerous-like growth. Sometimes it has orange streaking in it or looks a little bubbly. It's just really ugly. It kind of just looks like your plant got deformed all of a sudden. It can't grow properly. So to get rid of this, you want to remove the galls, treat your plant with a pesticide, but since they are so small, they are also very hard to get rid of. So some people just prefer to toss the plant out completely because they don't want it spreading to any of their other plants. Honestly, this might be the way that I would go, is just toss it, get me a new aloe vera plant because they are so inexpensive. If you're super attached to the plant, you can possibly get rid of it by removing those galls and treating it with a pesticide. And besides insects, some other pests or diseases that it deals with is root rot, soft rot, fungal stem rot, and leaf rot. All of these are caused by overwatering. So if you keep away from overwatering, if you have good drainage, if you have proper soil, you will probably not have to deal with this. If you do, you can remove the affected areas, you can repot your plant in new soil, take a look at the roots, make sure none are black and mushy, and if they are, cut them off and get rid of them. And then maybe try putting the sand on top of the soil to keep the fungal stem rot away, and also, most importantly, make sure that you are watering appropriately, giving a deep and frequent watering every maybe 2 to 3 weeks when the soil dries out. And last thing, just some extra tips on the aloe vera plant. It is really hard to get them to flower as houseplants, maybe impossible. I'm sure people have done it. They mostly will just do it out in the wild, but if you're really wanting it to happen, just know that they need as much light as possible. They need those deep and frequent waterings, and then they also need a cool season to kind of stimulate the flowering in the spring and in late summer. Overall, just taking care of your plant is the bottom line, but getting as much light as they can is probably the biggest thing that you could be giving it to get your aloe vera plant to flower. And you can prune these plants if the leaf is shriveled, if it's dead or it's damaged, or if you're simply just wanting to prune it, you can do so. Or maybe you're taking off some leaves because you've got a sunburn or something, or you want to make a face mask. You can do this. Pruning off healthy leaves can encourage more new growth. Just make sure you are never removing more than 25% of the plant, or else that could cause some serious stress to it. Another extra tip is to not let your plants nibble. Not let your plants nibble on it. What am I saying? Do not let your pets nibble on this plant, as it can cause them to have vomiting or diarrhea. It's just not great for them. And last little tip, kind of just a tip of knowledge, these plants, the aloe vera plant, will usually live for about 12 years in ideal indoor conditions. So they can last a very long time. I'm sure people have had them last much longer, especially if you're propagating those little offsets, those pups. You can keep a plant going for a long time, having its little generations go on forever. And that is the history of the aloe vera plant, as well as how to care for it. Thank you so much for being here and listening. It really means the world to me, and it really means the world when you guys share this podcast with friends or family and help it grow and help more people stay educated on how to care for indoor plants. I hope you guys have a great week, and I look forward to having you back here for another episode of the Plant School podcast next week. Thank you for being here and listening today, and I hope you'll join me next week. If you'd like to support this podcast and keep it going, you can find the support link below in the description and donate. Or I have some awesome Plant School merch, including stickers, shirts, and mugs, and the link to my shop is in the description as well. And if you don't want to spend any money but still support the podcast, share this podcast with a friend, either verbally or electronically. This will even qualify you for my giveaway. Just message me on Instagram at TinnyPlant that you shared the podcast with a friend, and you'll
you'll be entered in for a chance to win some goodies. Winners will be announced on the podcast. Again, thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great week.